Okay. All right, let's call the meeting to order here. Clerk, please call the roll.
Mark.
Excused.
Jeff.
Here.
Brandy.
Here.
Jay.
Excused.
Kurt.
Here.
Taylor.
Excused.
Bob.
Here. Okay. We have 4 members here total, so let's please stand now for the voluntary Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay. All right, I'll entertain a motion to approve the minutes for the June 10th meeting.
So moved.
Second. Mr.
Okay,
Mayor,
it's been moved by...
I had a
Yes, go ahead, Jeff. Any
I had
questions?
an amendment to the minutes from the meeting on the 10th.
Okay.
Under Assembly discussion items number B.
Okay, I'm getting to it here. Under B?
Yep. Service outside service area 1. Services outside service area 1. I asked for some information, but I wasn't really concerned about what the residents pay for those services.
Okay.
So it can just stop right
At Frederick Point, period.
Yes, ma'am.
Will do.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other amendments or comments? All in favor of accepting the minutes as read? Say aye.
Aye.
Okay. All right. Let's see. Any public hearing? There's no public hearings. There's no bid awards.
Are we going to talk about amendment to the, or approving of the agenda or amendments to?
Oh, I'm sorry. Thank you, Jeff. Yeah. Is there any other amendments or improvements to this meeting agenda? Yes, Jeff.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Mucci.
Under council discussion items, I'd like to just briefly talk about a work session with planning and zoning this fall regarding, the deliberations and some of the public hearings that they've had regarding the code revisions. So we'll put that under council discussion items.
Okay, please remind me when we get to that,
Yep.
Jeff.
And I'd also like to possibly, not this meeting, but for a meeting in the future, a letter to the city of Cake regarding their thoughts on the Petersburg to Cake Road. So that's all I have.
All right, so 2 items there. Thank you. Any other additions? Okay, seeing none. There's no public hearings, or do we have to approve the meeting?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
I'm all in favor of approving the minutes as amended. Say aye. Aye. Okay, so moved. Public hearings, there's no public hearings. There's no bid awards. Well, there is a bid award, excuse me. Sorry, I'm trying to rush through this.
I know.
Okay, I'm going to slow down. You guys just keep tabs on me. I appreciate that. Okay. Under item A, 19-245 North Harbor Advanced Metering Infrastructure Project. It says here that Director Hageman's award of recommendations to, what's that company you got there, Carl?
Eaton.
Eaton's, yeah, okay.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes. Go ahead, Mr. Michu.
I move that the Borough Assembly authorize the Borough Manager to enter into a contract with Eaton Corporation for the amount not to exceed $113,000,
Okay.
34 and .38, to provide fully functional integrated AMI systems and first-year software maintenance support per the North Harbor AMI RFP and Eaton's responsive proposal.
Okay, and is there a second?
Second.
Okay, so it's been moved and seconded.
Mr. Mayor?
Discussion.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I wondered if we could get, through the manager, have Carl kind of give us a description of what we're spending this money on, and just a little bit about the program and where you might be headed with this program.
Sure, absolutely. Thank you. So this project is to change the metering system in the in North Harbor, in the entire North Harbor, but also install some meters in the Middle and South Harbors to test the effectiveness of the system. The system itself is changing meters so that the meters that will be installed are they communicate with a collector unit through radio frequency the collector will be on the top of the municipal building and be tied into our utility billing system. And so every month, the monthly readings will be sent automatically to the municipal billing and the utility billing department. And but the beauty of this system, and the real reason that we're moving this way, is the remote connect and disconnect capabilities of it. We can use the utility billing software to actually connect, disconnect, do reads at any time. It'll track the information that the power quality and quantity that goes through these meters, and it provides a much better level of service to the harbor users and makes it much easier on staff. In the summertime in the harbor, a lot of people know we have a lot of traffic coming through. Boats get hot berthed in their transient vessels all the time. They need power. And so every time that one of those vessels ties up, somebody, a staff member from Power and Light, has to walk down the dock, get a reading, turn a meter on, and sometimes in the summertime that could be 3 to 4 times a day. And so it'll be a huge time savings just in that alone. And the system, after we get the North Harbor fully outfitted, we'll look at next year, in this next year's budget, there is money to expand to the entire Middle Harbor and South Harbor. And then from there, we could actually expand to other neighborhoods in Petersburg and slowly work our way through town to establish this radio frequency network and electric metering system. It's much more efficient.
Any other questions?
Yeah, I've got two of them for Carl. Is there a different rate for the harbor users down there to hook up and then and when you disconnect?
There are different rates, energy consumption rates. The connect fees are the same, I believe, connect and disconnect.
And the second question relates to the software. It says that the bid will include 1 year's maintenance on the software. Are the updates on that software continuous, or how does it operate, Carl? In other words, what's going to be the charge in the future for those to maintain that software?
That's a good question. So the annual fee of the software is $7,000 to maintain it. That means any updates that come from Eaton Corporation are automatically installed. They keep up. If we have any trouble with the system, they will troubleshoot it for us. It's all part of their support of their products. But annually, at this point forward, the Eaton contract will have to pay them about $7,000 a year for their service, and that will likely rise. Just inflationary increases, minor inflationary increases every year.
If we interconnect the other harbors in, obviously it'll go up, but will it be proportional, or what you're thinking? What do you think will happen?
Actually, their maintenance is tied to a number of meters, and I think the limit is 500 meters before it goes up, and we're installing 166 now. By the time we get through all harbors, I don't think we'll even be at the 500 level yet, so it will be that same 7,000 for at least a couple of years before it goes up, due to the number of meters that we have installed.
Okay, thank you.
I have a question for you, Carl. Hey, so what's the breakdown cost per meter? So if we were to add another 332 or whatever it's going to be if we get up to 500, what's that? What's the cost per meter?
Well, I've got to be careful of that question, because all of the vendors in this RFP were very upfront about the desire to be confidential on their proprietary systems and the cost of their systems. And so I can give you an approximate number of about $200 a meter, but that is not exact. And Eaton is desiring for the borough to be very discreet with the pricing information.
Mm-hmm. So another question here, Carl. So this 113,000 that is including installation, or is that something that you guys have to do?
We will be doing installation likely in-house. I did get a quote from a vendor who does installations, but the number of meters that we're talking about here and the manner, because it's so simple, all the pedestals in the harbor are so easy to get to, we'll likely do it in-house. There's potential that if we're busy, I've contacted some former employees of the borough that did a lot of meter maintenance, and that could help us out at a reasonable rate. So that could be an option too. But the number of meters we're talking about doesn't really make a lot of sense to bring in a separate contractor just for installation.
All right, thank you. The other question I have too, Carl, is it's just been tested in Southeast and in Alaska. I mean, is this a system that they've installed down south? I mean, how did we come to this point of deciding to put it into Petersburg? I mean, I understand it's going to save a little bit of time, but if we're only going to get 160 meters in there and we're going into year 2, I'm in that North Harbor, and all of a sudden we have an increase in harbor rates because I got $7,000 to split amongst the other 166 users. So has it been tested in Alaska, or are we the first?
It has, actually. This system is in place in Ketchikan. They use it in Ketchikan. They use it in Anchorage. There's an installation up there. It does work in Alaska. It does work. Eaton is a huge corporation, and they have expanded into the AMI realm pretty robustly, and so they are pushing their system, and it does work very well. The cost is reasonable compared to the other vendors that responded to our RFP. I did reference checks to ask other municipalities and utilities that use the Eaton products how they work. They're all extremely happy with them, very effusive about the ease of the system and how well it works. So I think we're really on pretty firm ground here as far as the system and the products that we're looking at.
So how long do you think, Carl, it's going to take for this pays back itself without having to send employees down to the harbor to do the changes and stuff?
Well, I don't know that. I'm not sure exactly how to gauge that. I'll have to get back to you.
Okay, that's interesting. All right, anybody else have any? Jeff?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I mean, I think this is a good step in the right direction. I mean, I think we get the opportunity to eliminate somebody walking down there and doing this work if we can if we have the capability to kind of do it electronically. And I think this bodes well for not just the harbor, but I think it bodes well for the rest of the community. I think there's other spots that we'll definitely have to go and physically deal with stuff. But I mean, if there's a way to eliminate somebody from walking down there and dealing with stuff, or they might still have to go down, but I think it's a good step, and I'm voting for it.
Member Merle.
So with this and then starting to move into the South Harbor eventually and then neighborhoods, are you looking towards eliminating the meter position at some point, or I mean, what?
Well, it will likely lessen the load, of course, but the water system, the water meters still need to be read, and there are components to switch over the water system to an AMI as well. It's just that there isn't as many benefits. I guess we don't see the amount of effort going into connects, disconnects, for water as we do for electric. So hadn't really put a lot of thought to switching over to AMI on the water side of things. If we did, then yeah, it would change the scope of the meter reading entirely for Petersburg. But as long as the water meters remain to be read, then that position will exist and need to be there. The other thing about the physical aspect of a meter reader out on the route is that they see things that you can't tell, by a computer screen. And if people are, if there's theft going on or an unsafe condition with a meter or a service, the meter reader does see that and report it, and does help us a lot. So there's a value in that position. We're just looking at trying to make the harbor operations and some of the other neighborhoods, the trailer courts in particular, would be great to have these meters installed. Just try to make that more efficient.
Any other questions for Director Hageman? If not, clerk, call the roll.
Kurt,
Yes.
Jeff,
Yes.
Bob,
Yes.
Randy.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, that's approved. All right, on to item number 7, persons to be heard related to anything on the agenda. Anybody here that wants to, on the agenda? How about persons to be heard unrelated to items on the agenda?
Sure.
Okay. Yeah, please step up to the mic and give us your name and who you represent, if you represent anybody.
Thank you, Mayor and Assembly. Dan Ewert, I represent myself. For 13 years, my family and I have been coming up. We have a cabin on Frederick Point East subdivision, and one of the things that we have a question about at this point is the mill rate. And so, from what little I understand, we pay about the same mill rate as places that have full services. And so, the question that I have and put before the Assembly is kind of why that is, and maybe there's something I don't understand. Certainly, we're not against paying taxes. We make use of a lot of different services here in town, and so, but I think what we would propose is that it's more in line with the level of services that we receive out there, which is, I think we have a road that we can get it within 3/4 of a mile of our cabin and hike in. So in the future, if there's a plan to put a road in or whatever, I mean, I think we're certainly interested in paying our fair share on the mill rate or whatever. But if there's not, then I guess that would be kind of my contention, is that maybe we should take a look at the mill rate and put it down more in line with the areas here that have fewer services.
Yes, sir. Question for you. Yeah, thank you. You said you're Frederick Point East?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Yeah, you're not the first one to come up and talk to us about that. You got the Cummings out there and a few other people, Woodwards and.
Over the 13 years, we've slowly, as budget allowed, built the cabin, and we love it here. In fact, we love it here so much we're moving here permanently starting this summer. We're also building on the road system, so my wife said that that's enough of the hiking. But
I sympathize with you, but it's something you have to look into. So thank you very much for your testimony. Yeah. Is there anyone else? Okay. Seeing none, I don't think there's any board or commissions reports. Nothing on the consent agenda, nothing on the report of other officers. There's apparently no mayor's report. I can report, though, I got my refrigeration running, but that doesn't have anything to do with the city. There's nothing under the manager's report. And unfinished business, item 14. There's a resolution before us, Resolution 19-10, and then 2019-10, a resolution setting the millage rate for fiscal year July 1, 2019 through June 30th, 2020. There's an amended motion in front of us here, so if somebody would like to, I'd entertain a motion to maybe accept the amended motion that was presented to us here. Somebody would like to?
Okay. Mr. Mayor, I make a motion to approve Resolution 2019-10A, which includes 11.45 mill rate total for Service Area 1 and 4.33 mill rate area-wide for education.
Okay. Is there a second?
Yes.
Okay, all right. Thank you, Mr. Michu. Anyway, what this does is that what we're going to do here, and I'll just read it here real quickly, this is with the understanding that the financial department will hold off calculating and printing bills until June 28th, when at that time the Assembly may reconvene to adjust the mill rate in response to any potential vetoes by the governor. We recognize that this may delay the delivery of tax bills by a few days after the July 1 deadline. So what we're planning on doing is just holding off on establishing a mill rate until we hear a little bit later, so we'll reconvene. So that's what this motion's about. So, any discussion item on that?
Just
Wait.
Aren't we
Yeah,
establishing a mill rate, and then we will, if we need to, we will reconvene?
Right,
So we are establishing a mill rate,
Right,
okay.
that's it, thank you, yes, thank you.
Mr. Mayor?
Members,
I was just curious if city staff had anything to add to this.
Me, Jody? What we've been doing the last couple of weeks is trying to track what's happening in Juneau. We've reached out to Senator Stedman and Representative Christ Tompkins. I emailed and called the governor's office directly. We've talked to our lobbyist, the executive director of Alaska Municipal League. I think Jody spoke to someone at the bond bank. We talked to the state assessor, or tried to talk to the state assessor. And reality is no one really knows what's going on. The governor did have an impromptu press conference, or statement maybe is a better way to say it, on Wednesday outside the working group that's working on the PFD, and basically said that he's not ready to release any information yet, but he was planning on potentially end of next week having an answer on what he's going to veto or not veto. So reality is we don't really know what the governor is going to do. And what you have proposed so far would be going at the level, assuming that the governor accepts the legislature's budget and that the school bond debt reimbursement is fully reimbursed. If in fact that happens, the assembly doesn't need to meet again and we're golden. If the governor does veto it, that's where that other meeting would come into play, where we'd ask the assembly to get back together and consider options at that point. Those options can be varied. We're trying to run some of those to ground. We're also trying to find out what other communities are going to do. We did have a quick email exchange with AML, who is indicating that many communities are in the same boat, and we're all struggling for ideas. Borough attorneys talking to the municipal attorneys association and finding out what everybody is kind of run down. So if we get to that point, I think we'll have some better answers on how we'll handle it. Clearly, the borough is good for paying our bonds regardless, and we'll make those adjustments. We're just trying to do it in a way that does not involve raising taxes if we can. Unless Jody.
No, that's it.
okay, let's see, any other discussion? Are we ready to take a vote? All right, clerk, call the roll, please.
Randy,
Yes.
Kurt,
Yes.
Bob,
Yes.
Jeff,
Yes.
All right, it passes. Okay, on to item B under Borough Manager's goals and objectives for 2019 and 20. We were all given kind of a draft to look at. Anybody got any additions or comments on what's already been presented?
Mr. Mayor?
Yeah.
Go ahead, Bob.
Oh,
Go ahead, Bob.
are you going down through them, Jeff, one by?
can we have a motion to approve?
Yeah, and the motion to approve.
So moved.
Okay.
Second.
Thank you.
All right, so it's been motion and been approved, so go ahead. Go ahead, Jeff.
start?
You want to start? Mr. Chair?
I was just looking, I went through these things, and there's several of us that are several suggestions that are kind of a little bit vague, and Steve's kind of narrowed them down a little bit. And I'd like to amend this list to incorporate Steve's comments on some of the goals. He's got under item number 3, prepare a complete staffing plan for the police department that includes coverage and estimated overtime and any proposed changes in service level. I mean, I think that's probably more on point than some of our suggestions, as well as number 4, prepare various options for the assembly on operations of assisted living now and into the future. I think that would be a helpful change under number 4. Under number 7, I'd like to see his verbiage in there for assess Parks and Recreation organization and prepare a report for the assembly on necessary changes, as well as number 8 in regards to his comments. I think most of in number 8 and 9, they're a little bit more on point, I think, what the assembly is looking to do, and I think those changes work for me. I don't know if we want to chat about them and stuff, but yeah.
May I jump into, how about number 5?
Yeah, I was going to ask about that.
Yes, as well.
Go ahead, Jeff, finish yours.
Nope, number five as well. No, I appreciate those comments. Yeah, prepare a report for the assembly on current local services contract. I think those changes all are helpful to us. Thank you.
Yeah, I've got
Member Lynn.
Go ahead. Are you-
No, you got Member Lynn. Go ahead.
On 5, I would like to, I agree partly with that. I would also like to look at, have a chance to review our policies as part of that, Steve. I mean, maybe that's what you intended.
Under number 5, Bob?
Yes,
On the purchasing side,
yes.
take a look at number 10 on the list and see if that answers, that was already on there, I didn't change that.
Okay, and maybe those, yes, because I do think we need to review our,
Separate, it's 2 different things.
yeah, I'm going to do that. Okay, and then down under number 7, I think we need to, I think what Jeff's comment about reviewing the organization, I also is, I think we need to look at the organization, how we're doing business, the hours we're serving, what we're trying to serve. I think that all needs to be part of it, Steve.
Agreed.
And I agree with, on that one. On number 8, I think that objective needs to be much broader. What I also had in mind there was not just what you have here, but I think we need to review the workload we have on the existing staff, and maybe some of the workload that Sandy has needs to be either not done or shifted someplace else. But I'd like to look at the workload, in other words, what the job is and the workload and the whole part of that. So what I had in mind originally.
So to add the sentence behind Steve's suggestion, review workload of existing staff, does that cover it?
What I was thinking of is we have assigned duties into that, and maybe we're talking the same thing here, but we have assigned duties to that. Some of those, like emergency preparedness and so forth, is that the right place for it? Should we look at something different? What do we need to be more efficient? You know, those types of things.
Okay,
I'm looking more at our efficiency and how we're doing business.
okay.
Is there any other comments on some of these proposals here?
Yeah, I think that's all I have on them for now.
Anybody else have any comments there? So then in general then, it's satisfactory to everybody just to get started on this, and I imagine there'll be some sort of kind of a moving target here. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Marucci.
I was just curious, are these goals and objectives that are you can accomplish, or are they stuff that we've thrown so far high that you can't get to them, or, I mean, it's been a long time since we've had goals and objectives, and so I struggle to kind of make sure we don't ask you to do stuff that you can't do.
Yeah, may I add to it?
Yeah, absolutely.
I agree. Are we asking for too much? That's part of that question I had.
I noticed one of the things here that we had required him to do, when we first started this, was to have dates on when these goals were to be, finished or completed. So if we leave them kind of open-ended, Steve, does that give you enough leeway to be able to accomplish as much as you can? Or do we want to prioritize them, and say these are the ones that we specifically want you to, to look into first, and then, because right now I think these are just in no particular order. So, yes.
I can get them done. That doesn't mean that we won't go back and forth, which will extend it out. So, that being said, it'll get done to presenting plans to you. What the assembly does with it after that can change that dynamic. If you want me to go back and go in a different direction on something that takes longer, you're correct. I didn't put any dates on it for that very reason. My goal would be to get these all done within the budget calendar year. If I start to think one's not going to get done, I'll make sure I let the assembly know, and I'll start off. If you look at 12 and 13 on this list, those are 2 that I put on here because previously the assembly had asked me to do that. Those 2 are actually maybe the 2 hardest to get done because they involve other groups outside of my control. So I mean, heads up right away, those two may be the hardest to get done within the same year.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. But once you have direction from the Assembly that the Assembly wants 12 and 13 done, it's not an ambiguous request. It's something that this body wants to have done. So you can carry that with you to help get that information.
Correct. PEDC, you know, I'm on that board too, so it crossing boundaries here a little bit. You know, the Assembly will get a letter at some point from PEDC when we get a quorum that basically outlines what I need from the Assembly before I can do a couple of these. I mean, these two in particular, because, you know, we need clear direction from the Assembly. You know, I'll use as an example, you know, non-fisheries related businesses, well, that falls into the whole tourism thing. How much does the Assembly want me going down that road? And for PEDC and the Chamber, that's really important for them. They have limited resources, and they really want to know how much time they should spend on this. So they're going to want some confirmation from the Assembly that this is a big deal and important. I put them on here because you had previously given them to me. I'm more than happy to work on these. But again, because I have to work with two different other groups to make this happen, I can't tell them what to do. I have to work through what their concerns are.
Great. Go ahead, Bob.
I think it would be good to have a discussion with the Assembly on those two items. You know, maybe we can put a little more definition to that, because there's quite a number of parts of that which are quite controversial.
Right. Go ahead, Member Michu.
No, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I mean, you might have to work with other groups, but you're getting marching directions from us.
Correct.
And this is where the direction needs to come from. And the PEDC and the Chamber of Commerce need to kind of fall in line and get what we need to have happen done. And for me, that's what I'm charging you with.
Sir?
So I have a comment here. Is anybody here on the Assembly prepared to come up with a priority list, or are we just going to leave these random? Or do we want to take some time and think about what do we want Steve to start working on first? Member Merle?
Why don't we ask everybody to maybe rank their top 3 or 4 and get back to Debbie, and then
Okay.
and see if we're all kind of in line, and if not, then we can discuss it at a later date.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea, because I think that'll help us focus a little bit more instead of kind of a shotgun approach. So that'll give Steve more direction, and it's kind of.
I have a lot of wonderful department heads,
Yep.
and many of these will move out off of my desk. So we'll be working on more than one at a time.
Okay.
But yes, thank you for that. That's helpful.
You know, Mr. Mayor,
Go ahead.
what I'm concerned about is I don't want the goals and objectives to get lost with us throughout the summer.
Understood?
I mean, it'd be interesting for me to see you get started on these, and as the group, I mean, send out this list as edited and have the Assembly kind of, weigh in on what their priorities are. But I don't want to see this, I mean, if we're giving you until next year during your evaluation to kind of do these things, and I don't want it to languish for 3 or 4 months and you be under the gun. I mean, I think these are what we'd kind of like you to do, and we can certainly get together and at least put our priorities of what we think is important. But I think with 7 of us, you're going to find a little bit of differences on what we think is the most
You asked
important.
me earlier if we can get these done. I said I can get them done. And if I can't, I'll be back to you. So,
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, so then you guys agree that we should just leave it alone then and forget about the priority list, so then we can then vote on this and just keep it moving, so.
There are some of these suggestions that do not have any how will this goal be measured answers.
I've taken care of that. They haven't seen it, though.
Oh, okay, great.
So trust me, once we finalize this, I'm going to send it back out to all of you. So if anybody has an objection to how I'm choosing it to be measured, say that. We'll put it back on a future agenda and we'll modify it at that point. But does that make sense?
Any other further changes on this or amendments? Okay. If there is, see none, clerk call the roll.
Bob?
Yes.
Brandy?
Yes.
Jeff?
Yes.
And Kurt?
Yes. Okay, so we'll just let them start working on that. All right, down to item C, Summer assembly meetings moved to Thursday evenings. This one here was suggested by the mayor, and holding the summer assembly meetings on Thursday evenings in order to have a better chance for a quorum. Clerk Thompson requested the assembly decide whether to move the meetings from the first and third Mondays of the month to the Thursday following the regularly scheduled Monday meetings for the month of July, August, and possibly September. And if so, at that time, day or evening. I will entertain a motion to approve.
I'll move.
Okay, is there a second?
The motion is to move
To move the meetings to
You want to
Thursday.
stick with Debbie's proposal?
Yes, yeah, so move them to the Thursdays following the original Monday meetings.
But it can be amended. This is so you guys can talk about it.
Yeah, I was just, yeah.
Okay, I'll second to just discussion.
Okay, so it's been moved and seconded. Now, discussion.
I was going to say, I think that there's a couple things, like Carl needed a quorum and things to get done this summer, so I think if we move it to Thursday and have better odds, I don't see the harm in that.
Yeah, I have no problem with moving it to Thursday. I still like to have one at noon and one in the evening.
That's fine. With that.
You okay with that?
Yeah, the reason for moving this for those people that are listening, to move it to Thursdays is that those of us that fish, the openings are usually Sunday through Wednesday. And so then we come back to town, kind of regroup on a Thursday, Friday, and then leave Saturday to get back on the grounds again. So that was the pretense for this, moving it to Thursdays during the summertime. So, Member Morrow.
Just for clarification, Debbie, did we have at all a quorum on Mondays if we were to keep it there all summer?
No.
Not at all?
Not at all.
Okay. So it wouldn't, there would be no meetings or change them?
Correct.
Okay.
And Kurt, would noon work on a Thursday then if you guys are traveling back? Is that too
Anytime.
early?
No. Thursday's fine. Wednesday's usually when we get home, Wednesday mornings. Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor. Debbie has my schedule. I'm usually here a couple Thursdays, but it's just, we usually leave on a Tuesday and come back. So whatever. If I'm not in town, I'll try and participate. Noon won't work because I'm usually in the middle of either diving or lunch at that time, but the evenings are better. I can participate in the evenings, but...
Jeff would be here for our meeting on the 18th of July, so he'd make the second July meeting.
Sure. That's how much I can do with this, it is what it is.
And it looks like both August meetings you would be here.
That'd be great.
So, yeah, if we decide to do it on Thursdays, we just have to give a 72-hour notice as to the time as to which we're going to do it. So we have to have some heads up. So
Well, I'd like to go ahead and schedule it. If we're going to do it, I'd like to say we're going to do it.
do it on that particular time.
And so I can
yeah.
let everybody know, and then we
Yeah.
plan on that. And then if it has to change, of course, that's okay. But
Yeah.
if we plan on doing it this way, at least for maybe July and August, and then see what September looks like.
So this is a question for you, Bob. What were your concerns? What you said you'd like to have them in the evenings or in the...
No, I was just continue like we did before with one of the meetings at noon and one in the evening.
Okay.
But on Thursdays, and I would,
That
go
works
ahead.
better for you?
It doesn't make any difference.
It doesn't make any difference to me.
I'd be here.
Okay. Well, why don't we just do that? Why don't we try to adopt the noon and then the evening meetings as we have in the past, but turn them to Thursday instead, so...
Okay? So we're talking noon and 6 p.m. on Thursdays, following the usual Monday. Perfect.
Yeah. All right, any other discussion? Nope. Clerk, call the roll.
Kurt?
Yes.
Jeff?
Yes.
Bob?
Yes.
And Brandy?
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay. Well, there's no new business. Any communications? Seeing none. Discussion items.
Thank you,
And I
Mr.
will
Mayor.
turn the floor over to Member Mucci.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to, put in a future agenda, scheduling a work session with planning and zoning to kind of go over their history over the last year and a half or so that they've been dealing with the proposed changes to the code. So before we get the changes at the assembly level, just to kind of get a understanding of what they've been through and what they're hearing and where it started and why we have it now, because I'm sure we'll have a lot of folks up here chatting to us about it, so I think it would help me, for sure, understanding what they've gone through over the last year. And so, we can do that in the fall or whenever the planning and zoning wants to get that document to us. Before we deliberate on that document, I'd like to hear from planning and zoning. And we can certainly deal with that.
I kind of like the idea of what we're doing with some of these other meetings is to have them after the election, because we're more than likely going to have some new members here, so. And that way everybody would be on the same page and brought up to speed, so. Okay. What was your other item there, Jeff?
Maybe a draft letter to the city of Cake, asking for their thoughts on the proposed road from Petersburg to Cake. We've heard from in the past that it might be a possibility, and it's interesting to me to find out what other communities on the other end of the road might be thinking about that. Maybe they don't have a position on it, but eventually I'm sure we'll be asked for a position on what we think about that road to Cake, and I'd like to include Cake in that conversation.
Through the mayor, may I offer a comment?
Sure.
Organized Village of Cake, City of Cake, and Cake Tribal.
Cake Tribal.
I would recommend that
Sure.
consider sending that
Absolutely.
to all three of them.
Absolutely.
That's exactly where I was going to go. You need to cover all three entities.
Okay. That's going to be something that we'd have to bring up so as a discussion or as the action item, so would we not?
Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, so we'd have to bring it up, at another meeting to...
I mean, like I could draft a letter. We
Okay.
could just have a draft letter come before you guys, and then you can vote on it. Does that work?
Yeah,
Okay.
Yeah.
Yep.
Jeff, would you want to work with her about what you want
Sure.
in the contents?
that'd be great. Thank you.
Thank
Okay, you
you.
bet. All right. Any other discussion items? Any recognitions? Seeing none, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So
Second.
Okay,
Second.
a second. We're adjourned.
Well, you didn't make 15 minutes.
No, I didn't.
He was trying at first.
I tried it first.